So welcome. We're doing a webinar today on surviving the holidays. This is a parent perspective from some veteran parents of children who have a variety of different special healthcare needs, and we will get into those individual introductions in just a minute. For anyone who is not familiar with Family Voices of Minnesota and the Connected program, we're a statewide free nonprofit in Minnesota that provide resources, information, emotional support to families who have children with any type of special health care needs. One of the ways we do that is through webinars like this and empowering parents by connecting them with one another. We have a variety of support groups running right now, in person and virtual. And we also provide support as staff throughout the state of Minnesota. So we will get started letting everyone, our parent panel members, introduce themselves, and we're going to start with Kelly. And to be clear, Kelly, you can tell us your name, a little bit about your family.
I'm Kelly Corpola. I have 4 children. I have an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 7-year-old. My kiddo with the highest needs is my 9-year-old. He has autism. He's nonverbal. And right now, our biggest challenge with him is anxieties.
Thank you, Kelly. Terry.
Hello, I'm Terry Betcher. I live in Mankato, Minnesota, and I have 2 adopted kiddos. Allie is 12 and Aiden is 9. They deal with a lot of mental health type issues like anxiety and trauma stuff, and they both have fetal alcohol and attachment issues. So we deal with a lot of the mental health stuff.
Thank you, Terry. Trisha.
Hi everyone, I'm Trisha Brisbine. I live in the metro area and I'm a program coordinator at Family Voices of Minnesota. I live here in the metro area with my husband Andy. We have a blended family with his 3 kiddos he brought to this relationship, which 17-year-old Marissa, 13-year-old Drew, and 11-year-old Sadie, and then my Charlie is 10, and he has global developmental delays and ADHD.
Thank you, Trisha.
Hi.
And Donna Elvabach is here. She's one of our volunteer support parents. Donna, I'll let you go.
Yeah, I'm Donna Elvabach. I have 2 sons. One is all grown up, well, they both are, and he has 2 boys, so I'm having fun being a grandma. My younger son, Ben, is a guy you see here pictured, and he was born with cerebral palsy, so he's severely physically disabled, but he's a pretty smart guy, so he has an unusual combination. He's 23 and attends a day center and has a lot of medical needs as he gets older, so it's been, so yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
He's very handsome.
Yeah, he is.
So we were gonna go back through, and maybe we'll start with you, Donna, and just go backwards, reverse the order, but just to share, you know, a little bit about what your holidays look like, because I think, you know, so much of our experience is based in our family traditions, our proximity to the people we love, things like that. So can you just tell us what the holidays look like for you?
Yeah, now that all my sisters and we have grown kids now, when they were younger, we would all get together and it'd be mayhem in the house. But now everyone's older, some of them are married, they moved away, so our Christmases are usually pretty quiet. And one of the big issues I have with my son is that he's in a wheelchair and many homes are not accessible for him. So we're often gathering at my place if we can for events like my mother's birthday. This year, I mean, so our holidays are different every year depending on what's going on with everybody else. But over the years, I've just kind of keep it really quiet and loose. And sometimes we have people at our place, sometimes we don't. And sometimes we'll, like this year, we'll go to my sister's. There'll be a couple of big guys who can help carry Ben into the main level of their house. So I have decided over the years to decide what my values are and to change my traditions based on those values instead of doing everything I grew up doing.
Sure.
So I used to bake a lot of cookies and I don't do that anymore. It just takes up too much time.
Thank you. Tricia, will you share a little bit about what the holidays hold for your crew?
Sure, thank you. So we're a blended family. I'm originally from South Dakota, and my husband's originally here from Minnesota. We have the children, all of them, every other holiday on the precise holiday. But in addition to that, we also have to figure out travel plans so that we can get in holiday celebrations with my husband's family here in Minnesota, and then also make it back to South Dakota to celebrate with my side. So that's 2 Christmases for those kiddos here. And then they also have Christmases with their other biological parent that we schedule around. So it's actually really hectic for all of the kids, I think. And one of the things that we've done, kind of like Donna, is we've tried to keep the traditions similar versus, what day we celebrate what. So when we're with my mom, it's back in South Dakota. We have some certain traditions that we do, and it doesn't matter if we do it before Christmas, on Christmas, or the weekend after. And the same thing here. We try to host here just to keep things kind of consistent for the kids who are already dealing with a lot of jumbling around and traveling and things like that. And especially for Charlie, some of those consistent routines seem to be most important to him and helps him manage some of his emotions and behaviors. And so we found that is really kind of how we think about it versus catering to kind of what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Terry.
Our family traditions have changed a lot over the years. The first couple years when they were infants and toddlers, we tried to keep up with what everybody else wanted to do, and it just was too much for my kiddos. So I finally started laying down some very specific boundaries for our family and everybody else to do what they wanted to do. But there was quite a while where we would go to my dad's, for instance, for the whole weekend. Well, my kiddos, especially my son, couldn't handle being away from home for that long. So we had to end up just going on Saturday, and that's kind of when the bulk of the Christmas stuff happens. And then we would be able to spend the night. And that was really hard for my family to adjust to. Like, not my family, but like my extended family, like my dad and my sisters, they just had a really hard time with that. But I just had to really be firm with it. And now we're kind of to the point where the kids are a little bit older. They can kind of stand it a little bit more. They can kind of tolerate a little bit more. So we've slowly kind of started adding in, or maybe we stay one night, not 2 nights. So, I mean, I have to say overall, my family's been good about it, but we've all had to learn to adjust what my kids can tolerate. And also the chaos gets them very overstimulated. And so, I have to parent very differently and let my kids take breaks when they need to, and not maybe participate in all of the activities. And so it's been a huge change, and it's been a big learning process for everyone, but I think we're finally at a good place with it. So.
Yeah, thank you. Kelly.
Ours are very different every year too, depending on kind of what behavior we're dealing with. And as my son has gotten older, it's harder for us to be able to pick him up if he has a meltdown or if he just doesn't want to go somewhere. So this year we'll be home. We'll see how it is. It kind of depends on the day with him, what his mood is, if he's happy and giggly or if he's woken up on the wrong side of the bed. We usually do church. We bring his service dog with, and he's able to make it through that most days. If we're having a rough day, then one of us will stay home with him and the rest of the family will go. But yeah, when he was younger, it was easier to go places with him. And one of us just take him out of the equation or leave early. But yeah, like I said, now that he's getting older, we just have learned to adapt to his needs so that the rest of the family and the kids can enjoy themselves.
Yeah, it sounds like you have to be highly flexible.
Definitely.
I did not introduce myself, so I will just quickly say I'm Jamie O'Connor. I'm the outreach coordinator at Family Voices of Minnesota. I am also a parent of these two really cute kiddos. Nora is 8, she'll be 9 in January, and she has a rare genetic condition called Williams syndrome. And then that's my son, Charlie, who just turned 7. We're in the metro area. So our slides aren't terribly relevant with our discussion, but I just will have some visuals up as we go around and just talk about a few points. And I know that everyone's already touched a little bit on the fact that they have to be flexible, that they have to be flexible and creative in order to either adjust traditions or adjust, in the moment to fit their family's unique needs. And so I guess our first talking point is, what are some examples of how you've creatively made those adjustments to fit your family's needs? And I'm hoping we can start with Kelly, because she may have more to say on this, but I've heard her talk about either a breakfast or a meal with Santa that she's done with her child, and I thought it was a really neat adjustment that you made. Go ahead, Kelly.
So ever since my oldest, who's 18, was an infant, we've gone to this breakfast with Santa that the local Lions Club, I believe, or Kiwanis, puts on every year. It's a pancake breakfast, and then they have a Santa sitting next to a tree, and a professional photographer will take the kids' pictures. The kids each get to pick out a present. It's just a very well done gathering. And so we've gone, but it's really noisy. It's really loud. I think probably 50% of the town probably of Annandale goes there. And so over the years, the kids don't want to miss that, but it was just too overwhelming for my little boy at times. So we started going, it goes until noon, I believe. We started going at like 11:45, where it's less chaotic. If he runs around or if he squeals or whatever, he never sits down when he eats. He kind of eats and then runs around. He's not so disruptive. I can keep a better eye on him, but the kids are also, the rest of them are able to still join in on the fun. So that's just one way we've been able to adapt and keep that tradition.
Kelly, did you have to make specific arrangements with the people that run that event, or is that just some stuff that you've done internally to your family?
Yeah, no, it's just, I guess, common sense. Breakfast, usually people are done eating breakfast by noon. So I kind of knew it cleared out. So it was just kind of, yeah.
All right. Tricia, do you want to talk about the creative adjustments you've made to traditions or in your day-to-day interactions around the holidays?
I think the main thing has just been I don't kick back and just enjoy as much as I used to. I adjust a little bit by making sure that each of the kiddos are doing okay. And I think that has been a big adjustment, because holidays used to be, let's, let the family share in the child care and, enjoy each other's company. And I think now it's become more of my responsibility, or at least I've taken that on, to make sure that checking in with each of the kiddos, making sure they're okay, because it's a really hectic time for them too. So I think that's one of the adjustments that I've made that's probably kind of dictated the environment that we create as a family, no matter where we are, whether it's at my mom's, here at the house, wherever.
Sure. Donna.
I think one of the things I used to love to do for Christmas is to cook. I love to cook, and I would make these elaborate meals for Christmas. The whole family, we would get together, but that is just too much work for me, taking care of my son. So one of the things I do is, if we're going to have company, I'll make something like, I've started making a pan of lasagna and putting it in the freezer. So all I have to do is take it out and stick it in the oven. I'd rather be spending my time with my son and people than in the kitchen cooking. And if we have more people come here, my sisters and I, we've got it down. We know how to put a meal together. All of us bring something, and it's never one person doing it all. So that makes it a lot easier when it comes to eating. And that's a big change I made, because especially during the holidays, that's the time I'm not going to have extra help, because they're all spending time with their families. So my son requires a lot of hands-on care. So I had to adjust by, I spend a lot of time taking care of him instead of cooking.
I feel like I'm not really great at delegating. I want to be better at that. But I think that's a really great way to, still have a nice time without having all of that be on you.
Amy, this is Trisha, and I forgot one thing that might be helpful, just to tag on to what I had said earlier. We found that it's really helpful for each of the kids to have their own personal space, no matter where we're at. So like when we go back to South Dakota, we make sure that there's bedrooms and designated sleeping areas, quiet spaces for each of the kids, whether it's shared amongst themselves or not, just so that they can feel like they have a safe space to go if things get uncomfortable or overwhelming, just because they don't see these people typically. I mean, they see my mom, but, some of my family back home, they see maybe once a year. And so it's maybe not as comfortable for them as it is for me. So we just make sure they have a safe place that they can go if they want to just kind of detach from the moment and the chaos.
Yeah,
that's a good idea. And go ahead.
Yeah, my son has sensory defensiveness to noise. So when he was younger, we would just go off into a back bedroom for a while if it got too much for him. And now we put earplugs on him and noise reduction headphones on the guy. And even play music. It helps him be around when there's a lot of noise going on, especially with little kids.
Terry, do you want to talk about the creative adjustments that you guys have made?
Yeah, like I spoke about a little bit earlier, just doing what's good for my family as far as adjusting the amount of time that they're there, or adjusting, the expectations. And then also, like Trisha said, we also do a safe space, especially for my son, and we always take his tablet or a book or something so that he can go to that space and just get away from it for a little bit. And he's free to come and do that as much as he wants. There's no expectation on that. So, but I think overall, just, knowing your children and knowing what they need and trying to provide that for them in the environment. So, yeah.
Sure. One of the things that we do to help my daughter, who can really perseverate about when's this next thing, are we going to get all these fun things done that I want to do, and she can get really repetitive and a little have some anxiety, is to have a chart that has all the things we are going to do, so that when she asks me, are we going to do this? I'm like, go look at the chart and see if it's still on our list. So visuals really help with her. So we've already, it's hard to sort of have specific questions because as we talk, we're always going to be covering a lot of, but so we've already talked some about this, but what are some ways that you prepare your children for holidays? And Tricia, I'll let you start with this because one of the things that I thought was neat that I heard you doing with your kiddos was talking about not just their behaviors, but other people's behaviors and what to expect going into a different household.
Yeah, so we have roughly a 5.5-hour drive. And if we limit, if we say, hey, everybody put your electronics away for a moment and be present, what happens is we get some really interesting time together to talk about, oh, remember last year when Uncle so-and-so did this, or remember when so-and-so said this, wasn't that weird? And we get to process a little bit and prepare ourselves for differences that we haven't encountered or they haven't encountered much since last year. For example, we always have to remind everyone that Uncle John drops a lot of F-bombs, and that, we don't have control over what comes out of Uncle John's mouth. Those aren't appropriate words, and we aren't going to repeat them, but just to kind of prepare so that everybody doesn't, freak out when they hear it. As they've gotten older, I think some of that's a little more, they've been a little more intuitive about, okay, yeah, we're going to hear things we don't want to repeat. But we have that 5.5-hour car ride to talk about. Now, remember, you're going to have your own space. You get the red room. That's going to be your bedroom. You guys can go there at any time if you're feeling overwhelmed. And we just really kind of prepare so that everybody feels like, okay, I don't have to be anxious for this situation that I haven't been in for roughly a year.
Yeah, thank you. Kelly, can you talk about how you prepare your kiddos for the holidays?
Well, we usually, if we're on the fence about wherever we're going, we'll usually let the other kids know, all the other children, all the other 3 of them know that, if things start getting rough for their brother, one of us will leave and reassure them that they won't have to leave and they'll be able to stay and have fun. Sometimes, like last night, my daughter had a holiday concert and it's very overwhelming. It's a very busy place. So we just know right off the bat that only one of us is going, and one of us is going to have to stay home with him. But we kind of know that ahead of time. We have some idea of some things that he can handle and some things that are absolutely just not going to work at this time. But we just always kind of, let the kids know that, yes, we're going to bring your brother along. We're going to try it. We haven't tried it for a few years, but if we're still not ready for it, just letting them know that they're not going to miss out on anything. But if they see mom or dad, one of us is gone, that's probably where they went. Other things, depending on his behavior, like I said, he has autism, so it's so different at all times. If they go to grandpa and grandma's who are about 4.5 hours away, like in the winter now, if they go to grandpa and grandma's, it'll probably be the week after Christmas, and I will most likely stay home with him because it's cold, it's snowy, there's no place for him to go and walk around and do much. Where when we're up there, when there's no snow on the ground, we can take him to the playground that's about a block away and burn off some energy. But trying to keep in mind that it's his Christmas as well, and bringing him to a place where he's not going to be comfortable and knowing ahead of time that things are just going to be really difficult. I guess trying to keep their memories in check. I want my other 3 kids to have a relaxing experience and be able to remember grandpa and grandma in a positive way versus watching grandpa reprimand their little brother the whole time because he's not around him very often. Just, I guess, kind of remembering from their eyes what kind of memories you want them to have.
Yeah. Donna, do you have anything that you want to add here about how you prepare your son, either when you're going to have a house full of people or when you're traveling? Or
he likes routine, so I have to tell him, I tell him ahead of time when people are coming or when we're going somewhere, who is coming and how long they're staying and what we're going to do, and just so he knows what to expect. And also, if we're having people in our house, we tell him, if he gets too much for you, you can go in your room. We tell him what he can do to get away and not have to deal with all that noise. So
yeah, that making a plan thing can be really helpful.
And I tell him a lot of times, if we go somewhere, if it gets to be too much, we can always leave early. We don't have to stay. So, I tell him that so he can relax a little more.
One of the things that we've used in the past being planful is like a secret code word. And this isn't necessarily about my kiddo with the disability, but actually my son, who could be more shy and doesn't want to, sort of be outed as needing mommy or needing a break. And so he and I would ahead of time form a little code word, which works for us at least. Kelly, you started to touch on sort of the family aspect of this, and often we're around family members who are not familiar with our children and who have opinions and ideas. And so, one of our follow-up questions here is, how do you prepare your family or other people for interacting with your children or for things that they might be expecting? Terry, I didn't call on you the last round because we had prearranged some stuff, but anyone at any time, just please interject. Don't feel like you have to wait for me to call on you. Tricia, do you want to start talking about how you prepare your family?
It's really quite a juggling act because I think it's mainly for that family we don't see very often. They don't know my kids. And my kids don't know them very well. And so it's always this, okay, how much do I share without coming across as nitpicky about how people have to be around my children? Because that's not what I'm doing at all. I just want to make it comfortable for them. My family doesn't really understand the dynamics of blended families, and so I would say there's a little lack of empathy for what the children are going through by traveling to come see people that they don't see very often. It's it's getting more comfortable as a family tradition, but sometimes it's just sharing with them, this is what the kids have been doing and here's what's in store for them, and this is just one stop on their busy holiday calendar. So sharing that with them. And I think I've found over the years that it's a lot easier and more helpful to spend my time and energy talking with the kids and working with the kids than it is with some of the adults in our family. They're a little more rigid and form their own opinions and assumptions that may or may not be true or correct, but I keep it kind of general and help the kids kind of work their way through it because they're much more flexible and adaptable than the adults are, to be quite honest. There's not a lot. I do think there are times to guide conversations to topics that I know my kiddos appreciate and understand, especially with Charlie having special needs. Sometimes, they'll say, oh, he's in 4th grade. Here's what we could sit down and do, and I can connect with him. And it's like, he's not going to want to do that. That's way too complicated and frustrating for him. But I can interject and say, Charlie, why don't you go show Aunt Ann this new toy or game or whatever and see if she knows how to play. And that helps guide it in a way that they can make a connection.
Yeah, we do. I often will do something similar, but just ahead of time in like an email format, just sending out, not like a newsletter. I'm not putting a ton of stuff into it, but just sending out a little update in anticipation of the holidays. This is what the kids are interested in now. Even just talking about how, oh, my son's really into athletics now, and if he doesn't get to move a lot, you might notice he's getting fidgety. You might, and then also when you're talking about the sort of developmental level of toys and books and things like that, it's really helpful for us to pack stuff that's appropriate because people don't guess correctly. And so if someone wants to read with my daughter, well, she can bring a book to that type of activity. And so I think what's nice about that is that for the adults, they start to get some ideas ahead of time. And it's like you said, Tricia, it's not me telling them what to do. It's me giving them information and then figuring it out. Kelly, Terry, do you want to add anything? I know we've said quite a bit since the last time I called on you.
Sure. Kind of a lot of the same things that Tricia said, and I do find that, I spend a lot of time talking to my kids too. We also have an uncle who means well, but plays very roughly with his own kids, and so that's how he tries to play with my kids. And my kids, having poor social skills, don't always understand that he's joking around, and they think that he's just being mean. And so just talking to them and reminding him, this is how Uncle Tony plays, and he's not trying to be mean. That's just how he plays. And, if it gets to be too much, you can always, just come sit by me and I'll protect you. And, so I agree some of that is helpful. And some of that, has just come also over time where luckily we don't have huge extended family gatherings. So my kids are all pretty familiar with the family that's there. They see them a few times a year. And that, honestly is pretty intentional. It's been harder for me to adjust to having the smaller family gatherings, but I know it's beneficial for my kids, and it overall makes the holiday seasons a lot better. So yeah, those are just kind of some of the things we do.
Donna, do you want to talk about whether there's some family preparation? I heard you say at one point that you had some of the younger boys in your family were able to help carry your son and things like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, if we're going to my sister's, her husband and her father-in-law said that they would help get Ben in the house. And when we visit my older son, I put Ben in his manual wheelchair, and we have a ramp for one step, and he can kind of bump Ben up the one little step they have into their house. So as long as I have someone else to do that, we can kind of get in, but it's still, I have a sister who you come into their front entrance, and there's either you go downstairs into the basement or you go upstairs up to the main level. So that's just not very accessible. And then when we are in the houses with a wheelchair, there's not a lot of room to navigate, which is fine if we're just there for the day. But like when I go to my son's, we stay in a hotel, and we just come there and spend time there. So yeah, everyone in our family knows Ben, so they know what we need. So
something that I thought about too was, and this kind of goes for holidays and gatherings all around, and I think, Donna, you talked a little bit about it. There's this give and take between, if I host it, I know my children will be more comfortable, things will be a lot easier. I'll probably be more comfortable because I don't have to tend to 4 kids and where they're at and if they're safe and getting what they need and that kind of thing. But there's also then, if I'm hosting it, I have to cook and I have to clean and I have to prepare. And so I think I'm constantly torn by, do I offer to host it, knowing that it's going to be more work for me, but it'll probably be a more pleasant experience for everyone? Or, the opposite. And what I've done, or what my husband has strongly suggested, is that we pick one holiday, one of our big family holidays that we typically celebrate together, and we'll host that one. And if other people choose to host, great. If not, we just chill out at home, just because that's kind of what works for us.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
And my family knows I'm really close. I have 3 sisters, and we're very close, and we've spent many holidays together. So they know if they come to my place, they'll either help me or they'll bring food, and we all do something. So I'm not the only one doing all the cooking, because I have a hard time doing that and taking care of my son. So it works out really well. If everyone can come to my place, that would be my preference. My sisters even clean for me.
It sounds like you have a really supportive family, Donna.
Yeah. Are you guys a thing? Because I would love. I'll take one of your sisters.
Yeah, can we adopt your family?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the big parts of the holidays is food, sharing food, making food. We've talked about this a couple of times. And sometimes family members have special health needs that are around food, whether it's sensory aversions, allergies, sort of your baseline picky eating. And I know, Kelly, this is something that you have experience with. Do you want to talk about what this looks like for you, or maybe around the holidays, but maybe just in general?
Yeah, well, every day. Nothing really changes with his eating when it comes to any every day is the same. But if we're traveling, we'll bring along his Annie's mac and cheese that he eats, and he'll eat bread, and he's on a high carb diet. And we'll also, if McDonald's is open, we'll stop there and get him his chicken nuggets and fries. That way we know he's fed, because if he's hungry, he's not going to be happy. I don't think anybody's happy when they're starving, but it's not something that we can force him to eat, or even invite him to eat, really, and him take advantage of it. We'll give him a little plate of food in hopes he might try something, but 99.9% of the time he won't. But we know that ahead of time. We bring the Cocoa Puffs with, and kind of our go-to stuff around here for him, but we can't expect other people to have that stuff on hand. So we'll have it with us and make the best of it.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Donna, what does feeding and diet look like for you and your son?
Benjamin, he has trouble eating, so a lot of foods need to be ground for him. But he also now he has a feeding tube, so even if he can't eat very well, whatever someone else has, I can always give him nutrients. So I bring a food grinder, a little baby food grinder with me when we go somewhere, and the water in his tubing and stuff, and I'll be in the kitchen grinding up food for him. And if he also has trouble eating if there's a lot of noise, he gets distracted. So right now it's really nice, because I can always give him nutrient if he can't eat. But when he was younger, I would also bring stuff that it's easy for him to eat when I would go visiting families, just so that to make sure he had something. But so I just have to bring those supplies with me along with his medications, and be mindful of when he needs them. So
yeah, medication is the other piece. Yeah.
One of the
Go ahead.
Sorry.
This is Terry. My kids aren't by nature picky eaters. They'll pretty much eat anything. But the thing that I noticed that they struggle with is is eating at all because they just want to be, you know, up and playing with the cousins or, you know, worrying about what the next thing is. So, you know, we just try to get in whatever we can. We don't try to set us, you know, oh, you have to eat this much meat and this much vegetables and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, and to be realistic, like who does follow healthy eating at the holidays? So we just try not to get all wrapped up in it and you know, try to have that power play about food. If they're hungry, they'll eat something. And if they eat too many cookies, then, you know, they have to deal with the stomach ache. So, you know, we try not to get too hung up on that part of it.
Carrie, I'm glad you said that. I can really, really relate with that because my family really gathers around food and they're foodies. And one of our traditions is to Christmas Eve dinner is usually we choose a different nationality and we try to, you know, embrace it. And sometimes because there's not other cousins around or children, it's just my two for kids. I feel like they're expected to sit at the table like little adults and participate in all of that. And because I want to make my family happy, I think that in the past I really have participated in trying to get them to do that. But I think it's really wise to just set in my own head the correct expectations because they are kids. They're not meant to be doing that. Tricia?
Yeah, those are really good points. One of the other things is I was going to say a positive about my family. I have one cousin who is always doing something for someone else, and she never fails. She'll say, "Oh, what does Charlie want to eat?" And she will offer to make his plate for him with my input, so that I actually get to make my own plate or serve myself at the same time as everyone else, which is, I don't know, I think that that's really, really nice because there are very few times that I get to sit down and enjoy the meal with everyone because I am helping Charlie. And so I just kind of a note to anyone out there who cares, offer to make the plate with parents' input and assistance if that's something that you'd be willing to do.
Yeah, or just helping. My son needs to be fed. He can't feed himself. So when I have someone that offers that I'll feed Ben for you, then I can actually look at my food. It's nice to get that break because, yeah, normally, you know, I'm feeding him and every once in a while I'll take a bite of my food. And yeah, it's just nice when someone else offers to do that.
Yeah. So I will just quickly add here that I have a kiddo with food allergies, and luckily she is not anaphylactic at this point. But, you know, I think one aspect of the food piece, there's so much preparation when you have some type of special diet. And I try really hard to make sure I know what other people are serving so that she has something similar, or because it can be very isolating for her to not be sharing in the same food as other people. And, you know, I think that I don't know if other families run into this, but there's sometimes there's a perception by family members that those allergies are contrived or it's just something we're doing to be fussy. There can be some judgment around that. And so, you know, we'll get into the self-care question soon, but there has to be some pre-work about having a back of Teflon and letting that stuff slide off a bit. Does anyone have anything else to talk about in terms of the food piece before we move on? So related to everything that we've been talking about is this question about how do we set boundaries? And, you know, this can be all over the place. This can be internal, this can be with our families, this can be with our kids. Terry, I'm wondering if you want to start us off here about how you set those kind boundaries around the holidays.
Yeah, you know, I think like everyone has said, you know, I try to communicate it very sort of matter-of-factly with my family, you know, wherever we're going, that, you know, this is what works for our kids and this is what, you know, we need to do for our family. It has nothing to do with not wanting to be with you or, you know, thinking you're doing anything wrong, but this is just how my kids handle life best. And they've all seen the huge meltdowns that happen if my kids get overwhelmed. So, you know, in general, my family wants the best for my kids. They just have a hard time understanding it. So me kind of setting those up ahead of time and saying, you know, this is what they can handle today, kind of helps them understand, or at least empathize with what, you know, my kids are going through. Because it's uncomfortable for my kids and for everyone else when they're melting down and raging because, you know, they didn't get their needs met. So, you know, I just think it's important to look at what your kids need, and their needs are just as important as anybody else's needs. You know, we all get overwhelmed by family and need to take a break, and sometimes we just push through it, whether we like it or not. But wouldn't it be great if we could all just do what we needed to do to stay sane through the holidays? So yeah, just some prep work ahead of time and just some consistency every year, and we're getting through it. It's getting a little easier.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Do you feel like after the first few times of putting yourself out there in that way that it does start to get easier for you?
For sure. Yeah, it's definitely has gotten easier, and I don't need to prepare them every year now. They just kind of know. The only thing I need to do is say, oh, Aiden's having a hard time this year. I think we'll only spend one night. Or, you know, they're doing really good right now. I think we'll be able to stay the whole weekend. You know, that's really the only kind of thing that I let them know about. So, and they know at any time that could change. I mean, we could get there and plan to spend 2 nights and it just doesn't work. And I don't get the guilt like I used to. So that's nice. I feel supported in that.
It's powerful for those of us who are figuring out how to set these boundaries to see you looking relaxed with that decision. So thank you for that. Tricia.
You know, this one's really a struggle for me because we have, you know, the multiple households and the schedule. I always try to let everybody in our family know ahead of time, here's, you know, the weekend or the dates that we'll be able to celebrate, that we'll have the children. So, you know, what works best for everyone. And I sometimes really get my feelings hurt when people don't respond to that or talk about how, well, we don't like to plan that far in advance, or we'll put it out there and it's, you know, overlooked by family members, and they'll go make other plans, and that it hurts my feelings, because it's not what I had envisioned for these, you know, beautiful Hallmark holidays, right? So I think that number one, just having other parents who get it to talk to. I need you guys so badly this time of year. Or there's going to be some major family brawls or things said. But I think that that's what I need to do. I need to, even if it's just a quick text message to one of my tribe to say, oh, this happened again, and to vent about it. I think that that's one of the things that I've found most helpful because, you know, I know, Jamie, you had mentioned having a Teflon back. As much as I try, sometimes I just don't. And sometimes some of these things hurt. And, you know, the only glory I can revel in is just knowing that I did everything I could to make it good for my kiddos.
Sure. I'm aware of our time, and I don't want to skip over the boundaries question, but maybe we can interweave it a little bit, just like Tricia just did with the self-care piece. What are you doing to take care of yourself in all of this? Because I'm hearing a lot of flexibility, creativity, and adjustments on the part of you as parents. And so what does that look like? I heard Tricia talk about getting in touch with that tribe, those people that understand. Kelly, do you want to talk about the boundaries piece as well as the self-care piece here?
As for the boundaries, I guess just letting them know ahead of time that we may need to leave. And with having older grandparents, older relatives who aren't around my kids very often, just letting them know that we don't discipline we try to discipline in a positive way and redirect, and it may not look like what they did as a parent, but it's what's working for our kids, and we just know our kids, so they just kind of giving them that pep talk and letting them know that if we do end up leaving sooner than expected, that it was for the best. We had the best intentions, and that's why we're leaving. As for self-care, I guess just learning that, like Tricia said, with the Hallmark holidays, it's not about what you as a parent, I guess, have, want to happen. It's about the memories your kids are going to have, and keeping everything as positive as you can. And if it's not working out for one kid, that shouldn't necessarily impact the rest of your kids' time with family.
Yeah, those are great points. Donna.
As far as self-care, just sleep. I used to do a lot for Christmas. I love that holiday. And over the years, I would just be exhausted by the end of the month. And so I've learned to do less and to kind of, every year see what I feel like doing and not feel I have to get it all done. So I'm thinking of just paying attention to my energy level, and now it's more Ben's health too is an issue. So if he's not feeling well, we're not going to try to keep doing stuff. And I think the biggest thing for self-care is, and even if we don't get together on Christmas, our whole family, we often make a point to get together at some point. So it's not that we don't see each other, we just may not see each other on that particular day. So like my older son, he goes to his in-laws for Christmas. He was with me for Thanksgiving, but he'll come at the end of the month too. They'll come here and we'll have our little Christmas then. So that'll be fun. But yeah, for me, it was just paying attention to how tired I'm getting or how stressed out I'm getting, and not feel that I need to get everything done. So.
Donna, you and I have connected a few times one-on-one, and one thing that I really admire about you is that, some of your self-care is around movement and being outside and yoga and stuff like that. But what I really admire is that you seem to have this grace about understanding that you don't always get to have a ton of that, but you just keep persisting at taking it where you can get it. And I can often get just really disappointed that I feel like I'm not getting what I need. And so then when I do have time, I just go, that's not part of it. So that's something I really admire about you.
Yeah, I keep trying, keep getting out there. And my son, he's physically demanding to take care of. So I have a high motivation to take care of myself because I need to in order to take care of my son. So that, plus I value my own health. But yeah, it helps me a lot with stress, and as a caregiver to get out and do yoga or get outside for a hike and do stuff like that. It's part of the continuing. I think you're a better caregiver if you take care of yourself like that. So sure. I don't always get to, but I do when I can.
So Terry, I don't think we rounded for you about the self-care question. If you want to add anything to that before we take questions or comments.
Sure. Self-care, I have a huge tribe of adoptive parents that we have a ongoing Facebook Messenger link where we can just jump on there anytime and just vent or celebrate or whatever. So, it's like they're my constant in the background that I know that they'll get it. And then, just lessening the traditions. And I do therapy once a week, and that's one of the things that I've had to deal with a lot is that expectation of the Hallmark holiday can't happen for our family, but it doesn't mean that our family is lacking anything or is missing anything. If anything, it makes it better to not have all those expectations of the perfect tree and the perfect, treats and the perfect everybody sitting around and, opening presents and everything being all great. It can be small and it doesn't have to be so elaborate and it still be okay. So just coming to terms with that stuff has helped a lot.
Mm-hmm. And to that point, I think that's a common American experience even without the special health needs, the difference for us is the sheer intensity level of our day-to-day lives compared to a family who doesn't, have a child with all these additional needs. So I think it's pretty groundbreaking work to be doing regardless of the disability piece. So I just want to open us up to any questions, or and this includes our panel members too, any additional comments, things that we haven't covered.
I wanted to just chime in and say, as a professional that works daily with many adoptive, I work with adoptive, foster, and kinship families, a lot of whom have special health care needs, have children with special health care needs or mental health care needs. And the holidays are a really hard time for their families, and are often quite isolating for them. Because other people in their family don't understand, or other people in their community don't really understand. And I was just so impressed by each of you and your commitment to your children, and just how child-centric all of you were, without even trying. I mean, it just felt like it's just who you are, that each one of you is thinking about your child first, and what they need and how you can help. I just felt like every one of you was kind of reframing every question to be, how does this impact my child? And you were so compassionate and empathetic for their experience of the holidays as well, and how, if they have a tantrum or if they need a break, they're not doing that purposefully. They just have an unmet need that only you as their parent really knows how to help them. And that's a really remarkable, wonderful thing that I don't see any of you, purposefully like trying to do. It just seems to be how you are and how you see your family. And that's just a lovely thing. It makes a really big difference for your kids. I know that makes a really big difference for your kids. And I know that it can be really hard.
Andrea, that was really kind. Thank you for saying that. I can, knowing these moms, I can tell you that while they don't have to put effort into feeling love for their kids, that they do put in a lot of effort in growing and taking care of themselves, for sure.
Yeah.
But thank you as well for your work and for participating today.
Of course, I've written pages of notes, and that each of you have said something that just really was a shining, just great thoughts and great things for me to consider when I'm talking to other parents and helping them to think through strategies for themselves and give themselves grace and give themselves permission to say, nope, we're not going this year. And, or yeah, we can come for an hour and then we got to go. Because those are the questions that I think they really weigh on a lot of parents. They don't know how to juggle everybody's expectations, grandparents' expectations, and their own expectations. And there's a lot of grief and a lot of loss in making those changes when you start your parenting journey, or as you go along your parenting journey of parenting kiddos with really different needs than other kids have. And then also I was just really thinking a lot about how many of you have some kids with special health care needs and then others without special health care needs, and how you juggle the needs of everybody, and are keeping all those things in mind as you're going through the holidays. But it sounds like that's just kind of how life is. The holidays bring up extra people, extra activities, but it's kind of a constant thing to keep in mind, all of these things. So it's really helpful for me to hear. And I really am so grateful for everybody to everybody for sharing their thoughts.
Thank you.
It's really helpful.
So I will send you a link to the recording if you have specific families that you feel like might want to look at this on their own time, because I know midday is not always accessible. And then, as you know, if you run across families who would like some direct peer support, we're here for that as well. So
yes, we use you a lot.
So thank you, everybody. I always love these discussions. I get so much out of them. And the last time we did a webinar like that, I think it was going to send you directly to a survey. That will not happen this time, but I will try to get an email survey out in the next couple of days just to make sure that what we're doing is actually helpful to families. And so look for that, and then reach out if you need anything. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy
holidays.
holidays.
Thank you.
Bye.